The following is a presentation of Playfly Sports Properties and Michigan State Sports Properties. Got a little lag going on here. It is Thursday, August 17th, 2023. Welcome to the only show about Spartan Dawgs, hosted by Spartan Dawgs. This is Sparta MSU. I'm your host, Jason Strayhorn, played back in the Perlis and Saban eras as a team captain in the center. I couldn't do this without my two dogs here, starting by, my man, Otis Wiley, the boss, the ball hawking safety, hard-hitting guy. Both of these guys played back in the John L. Smith and D'Antonio era, and Jehuu Jehuu Caulcrick, single-season touchdown leader. Just does it for a living, runs people over and scores a lot of touchdowns. If this is your first time to the show, we want to welcome you. If this is not your first time, we want to thank you. Be sure to log on and get into that chat, the live chat. That's where the party's at. And log on to all of our social media platforms at This is Sparta MSU. Be sure to click that like and subscribe button, and let us know wherever you are right now. Be sure to know that we are excited to announce that SeatGeek is our newest sponsor of our show. SeatGeek is the official ticket marketplace of Michigan State Athletics. SeatGeek will be rewarding a lucky fan with upgraded seats for each home game. Whether you're buying or selling football tickets, SeatGeek is the place to do it. SeatGeek, so Spartan fans can fan. Fellas, special day today. Lots of announcements coming down the pipe. We got a great guest today. We got a lot of stuff to cover. But MSU Board of Trustees votes 8-0 to allow alcohol at football games, fellas. Talk about it.
You in the thick of things there.
I am. I sure am. One, let me give a shout out to Jehuu and his favorite shirt he's wearing today.
It's a big day. We got King George on.
That's your go-to. Look, Stray didn't get that joke because he's on the delay, so clearly he's not laughing right now. But anywho, it is a great day to have that obviously vote go through. Being in the thick of it, it's been back and forth, and it's still kind of back and forth. But it's understanding how to basically roll this out successfully, because as you know, if you roll something out, and as we lost Stray, we're going to keep rolling. But as you roll this out, you don't want to be able to say, hey, it's been half executed, because if you don't do it the right way, it's going to be some backlash. So, yes, we've waited long enough. It's been past due, but we've got it done. Thanks up to Big Gretch, Governor Gretch, Governor Whitmer. She got it done, signed the deal, and it's an opportunity to help to roll it out. How can we roll this out successfully and then not get any backlash? But I wish we had it all season long, clearly, but you got to work with what you're given, and we're strategically behind the scenes trying to work that out. So, obviously we're going to be working during the day, but working during the game. But talk about how you feel about it, because clearly I think with the fans, if we were playing and this is happening, it would have been a whole another level of just talking about swing juice.
Swing juice. I'm really excited about it. I think it's something that's good for, good for the university. The thing, and, it's going to be limited to, this year it's going to be 4 games. It's going to start that September 16th game against Washington, and then it's Maryland against Michigan, and then November 4th, and then against Nebraska. But the thing is, I think rolling it out like that, and like you said, making sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and it's rolled out and fully executed the right way. So I hear a lot of people, talk about like, oh my God, this is going to be bad for, there's going to be drunk students, there's going to be drunk people. It's not. Like, people need to calm down and people need to relax a little bit about this, because the fact is we're not the first school in NCAA or in football history that's gonna sell alcohol at the stadium. Other schools do it. I remember specifically speaking to higher ups at when we're at Illinois and talking about it. What is he said the drinking issues and problems have gone down significantly because you're allowed to sell alcohol in the stadium. You're not going to have people chugging fifths before they walk into Spartan Stadium because they know they can go in there and buy a beer and drink responsibly. I think the tailgating stuff is going to be you're not going to be trying to get hammered before you go into the game because it's not there. And of course, it's going to be regulated with you're going to have to show IDs. There's going to be training on all those things. Everyone that's selling the alcohol will be trained properly. It's not just going to be a free for all that underage kids will be going and buying. It'll be just the same thing as an NFL stadium or any other stadium out there. So people that saying it's going to cause more problems need to relax. It's not going to cause any more problems than there is. If anything, I think the drinking issues will probably lessen a little bit, because people will be more responsible because they know they can get it at the stadium.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Look, there. I think we are the 10th school out of 14 that's bringing this out. Correct me if I'm wrong, Otis. I know you're involved in a lot of those daily discussions about where we are, and the rollouts happen. It's coming. People are excited about it. I'm excited. Otis is definitely excited, and I know Choo Choo is excited about it because it's going to be very loud. It's going to be a spirited day come September 16th when we face the Washington Huskies on the Peacock Network. But you're going to be able to tune in to us, yours truly. We're going to be here there. We're going to be doing this, and it will be very loud. I expect that game against Michigan. Ooh, if it is a night game indeed, with alcohol, guys.
Hey, listen. Yep, Washington is a blackout too. Like we're wearing the blackout jerseys as you saw in the field. So you got that. Bring that juice, bring that fire. Let's bring just let's get the stadium rocking, man. It's gonna be a good time in East Lansing.
100th anniversary, celebrating the Rose Bowl 10th anniversary, and the first game when alcohol sales allowed in Spartan Stadium. It's going to be one awesome event, guys. Nick Samac, moving on, confirms that he's dealing with an upper body injury. Says he's on track for the season opener. This is the starting center for Michigan State football, and he's on the Remington Award list.
When we say, all right, let's go. This is a funny story, right? So, as you know, I was a sideline broadcaster, and that year one, I started to learn the tricks and trades of how to verbalize injuries in real time. So I'm giving you some game choo-choo, right? So I remember there was an upper head injury, right? Like I couldn't say concussion straight out, like on the air. I couldn't say, hey, he's head on collision and all this stuff. I didn't even know, but I remember saying, like, I feel like I said the upper torso or something. Like it was reaching for words that I did not have in my vocabulary. And I remember getting a text like, dude, do you know what you're talking about? Like, I honestly did not know.
You got to use hockey terms.
Yeah, you got to use hockey terms. But with this injury, yeah, it could be a tweak. It could be a strain. But for him to be rested, like, you know what? The real game is that week one in the season. Like, hey, let's scale it down and we're going to rest you, right? So it could be just a tweak. We don't know how severe it is, but, from him being one of our leading offensive linemen, it's all right, let's rest up, big fella. Let's get ready for that big game week one. And we have a longevity of a season, a bear of a season. Strength of schedule was crazy. I think this is a good opportunity to just rest. Like, we don't know how severe it is, but when he says an upper body injury, what could that be? We don't know, but we will find out. But we don't know yet.
I'll tell you this, as a center, I ain't worried about it. Look, upper body injuries for centers. Hey, look, let the guy rest. He'll be fine. This is year six for Nick Samac, right, Chew?
Yeah, so it's 70-30 for me. 70-30, 70% I'm not too concerned, and 30% I am a little concerned. And I'm not concerned by anything from the physical aspect of things. I know he can, you said it straight. This is year 6 for him. he can play the game of football. He can snap the ball. He can block. He can do everything. The thing that has me a little concerned is that chemistry in camp, making those calls for his fellow linemen, identifying the front, looking at the backers and everything, and having the running backs get used to the way that he plays as well. That's the little thing that concerns me a little bit. But overall, he can play the game. He's out there in practice. He's getting mental reps. He's in the meetings and everything. So I'm not concerned on that aspect of things. I'm just that 30% of me is a little concerned with that chemistry factor there, because this is a big year for that offensive line and that backfield.
Hey, listen, the athlete, you talk about the running backs being the best athletes on the field anyway. They got to be able to adjust when the guy comes back. Don't worry about it, Chew. I think he's going to be just fine. I think it's more like a 95% worry because guys like –
great. This is a question for you. Like, all right, let's talk about the radius of you might have an upper injury, your upper body, but what's the radius of yardage that you need to control when you're an offensive lineman? I think it's good for us to do this now versus when we had the issues last year. And if he went down in game 1 in season, it's good that this happened now. We can be able to be a leader. We know he's a leader, so he's going to be able to coach, look at some things bigger, broader, from helping the younger guys prepare for his backup if he could not go for the entire season. But it's an opportunity for him to be able to step back, put that coaching lens on, help the younger guys. But I think he's already, like you said, this is 5 years, 6 years going on, right? So he's a vet. It's almost like he shouldn't even be practicing, to be honest with you, right? We know he's physically ready, mentally he's ready. So I'm glad it happened now versus game 1. That's all I say.
Yeah, look, as a center and offensive lineman, man, as long as his wheels are working, that means his legs, his lower extremities, his back is intact, and his head is good, and he's got one hand. That's all we need, okay? He'll be just fine with that. I've seen players play with opposite hand, a broken hand. They play games.
I'm worried about chemistry. I'm not worried physical stuff. I'm worried about chemistry. That's the thing. That's the concern.
And the running back, Nate Carter, and whoever it is back there will be able to adjust just fine because they're the best athletes according to you, Choo-Choo. Okay? Great athletes adjust. That's what they do. All right. Let's moving on. Mel Tucker's press conference here. Let's have a couple cuts before we get to our special guest. He talks about that running back room with the great athletes needing to step up a bit. Let's go to that cut.
When people ask me about the run game, if it's not, because it's always not what you want, hey, I'm not going to put it all on the offensive line. I never have. Okay, today I'm watching practice. And if a tight end misses his block, everybody on the O-line's got their block, man, and we can't run the ball. Or if the running back doesn't hit the hole right, we got a hole there. He doesn't hit it. I mean, the hole's not going to be there forever. We're playing Power 5 football. I mean, so it takes all, and then today, Gates made a huge block on Carter's big run. He doesn't even score if he doesn't go in there and dig out that safety. So the run game, and then you got to get the checks right. I mean, we're not just going to run the ball over here when they got too many guys over here. We need to run it over here or do something else. So it's a whole package, and everybody contributes, to the run game. And you need to run the ball better, but we're making progress. And then, we need to stop the run better and split safety defense, man. We just can't drop a safety down, all the time and think we're going to stop the run that way. We need to be in split safety defense and play big boy ball and be able to, knock guys back and control blockers and throw them on the ground and finish on the ball with maybe one linebacker in the box.
Hey, man, he's getting a little spirited there, knocking mics over and everything, sweating a bit, trying to hold himself back from cussing. Well, he's in mid-season form, fellas.
Yeah, he's absolutely mid-season form, and I love it. And first of all, shout out, I love that polo he was wearing there, that gray with that Spartan logo on there. But, he's 100% right. You have to be able to run the football. And, everyone wants, Kenneth Walker, he was a hell of a running back. He made a lot of things happen, and also, too, he made Peyton Thorne a better quarterback because the pressure was off Thorne. And we saw last year when it was on Thorne that we had to throw the ball to win games, and we weren't that successful. We have to run the football, and if we want to be successful, because that opens up the pass game. That's Otis, this. If a team is one dimension, you're just going to be sitting back there as a safety. But if you have that threat of run and pass, it takes you off your game for a quick second. You have to do that read. So we can't be predictable this season. And I felt last year as running backs, we did not run the ball with authority. We did not, have that mindset of, this is Michigan State University. This is, like Coach Tucker said, Power 5 football. And that legacy of tough running backs has come through from the TJ Duckets, the Tico Duckets, the Sergic Irvin, Le'Veon Bells, Javon Ringers, all those guys, that we established the running game in football, and everything else opened up, and receivers were able to have big, careers, from that. So we have to run the football. We have to take that pride. Coach Reed in the running backs room, talk to him, a little bit this offseason about that. He's saying they're going to get back to that. We have guys with the mindset now because we have a loaded running back room led by Nate Carter. And it's going to be that if you don't play, you're going to get the hook. That's it. You're going to get the hook. You're going to have to come out if you're not producing there. Is that mindset there? And that's when you find a really good running backs by committee, when everyone's contributing, everyone wants to beat each other out. And that competitive competition in the room, that's when everyone is at their best. And running backs have to stick their foot in the ground, one cut. You can't be dancing around. The running backs have to know who they are and play with them themselves. If you're a big back, run like a big back. You can't be a dancing bear. If you're a speedster, show that burst. Receivers blocking downfield, Coach Hawkins teaches that no blocking, no Rocky. So you got to do all those things. So I think this is a pivotal year for the run game. And I think led by Nate Carter, he's going to, really show what we're going to get back on track to that running football.
Listen, no one can break it down in the running back room better than Jehuu.
Hey, I was going to say that too. Like, listen, this man is the product of sticking north-south. Like, you know
all about that, don't you?
I know all about it. I've faced death and I'm scared right in the face. But no, look at it. Like, we talk about pointing fingers. Well, Darren Harris had a good point when I was talking about, like, I was conflicted because last year we had those defensive woes and everyone wants to point fingers of who is the problem. All right, what's the source of the problem? Oh, it's a coordinator. Oh, it's the calls. It's the defensive line. It's the defense. It's the linebackers. It's the safeties. It's running. It's all about each level of each team buying in. It's the team. So like Choo said, running backs got to go in and make the move, and you got to get what you get. Positive gain. Think about it. Positive gain. No negative yards. And offensive linemen, like, they get the bad. They get the brunt of the bad all the time, because if you're not getting the momentum and no movement forward, you're not protecting the quarterback and you're not getting your blocks for the running backs. Well, it's 3 levels here. Like, everybody's got to be on one accord. So I love that Coach Mel and Coach Tuck has accountability, the voice of accountability and the tone, especially in your press conference. It's like, listen, I'm not about to point my finger at my offensive line. Like, it's everybody. Like, everybody's got to do their part in order to be able to be successful. And you sense a little bit of frustration, but you also know that they're better than that. And I think that's what Coach Tuck is coming from, is he knows that we're better than this. And we got to see the glimpse in those glimpses of positive productivity on the offensive side.
Great analysis, guys. And he also brought up something, that we're going to also cover with our special guest, but we got to get this clip done right here when he talks about the Big Ten expansion, adding Oregon and Washington to the mix.
I think it's good for the Big Ten. It makes us stronger. When you're recruiting players, high school guys or portal guys, who you play is a big draw for them in terms of, like, you just think about what type of schedules we're going to have and what type of, football and what type of competition it's going to be week in and week out. So it's a huge stage. It's getting bigger. And it's going to be even more competitive on the field. It's going to be more competitive in recruiting, and it just makes our league stronger, makes our league better. And it's important. You'd be surprised how many players, how many recruits we talk to, and they talk about, okay, well, SEC versus Big Ten. It always comes up.
Hey guys, before we get your analysis on that statement, that was a great, words there by Coach Tucker. we gotta bring our guests. I want him to join this discussion about this because he's got a wealth of knowledge and a lot of experience in this. But we'll get to our special guest, George Blaha, after this message from our friends over at IHOP.
$5 all-you-can-eat pancakes are back to celebrate IHOP's 65th anniversary. So come on in, even if it's your birthday too. Available for a limited time, only at IHOP. Download the app and start earning free food.
Tired of waiting, man. We got to get the legend, the Hall of Famer, Mr. Everything on this call right now. And that's George Blaha joins. This is Sparta MSU. Welcome to the show, George.
Thank you, Jason.
Yes,
Otis,
sir.
you.
King George.
Round of applause. Hey.
Just saw that all-you-can-eat pancakes.
Yeah.
My wife Mary turned her head about that. She said, wait a minute here. Pancakes.
Oh,
Anyway,
man.
I want to say this, that it's great that Oregon and Washington are in the Big Ten. People say, well, gee, you get to travel out there. Hey, this is Michigan State. We've already been there. We've already been to USC. I've been to USC at least twice. UCLA, Washington, Oregon. So it's not like this is Michigan State. We go a lot of places a long, long way from East Lansing. So this is not going to be a wowee for the Spartans. However, I agree with Mel. I think it is going to be good for the Big Ten and good for recruiting.
Without question. Hey, George, look, you have a lot of, history when you talk about your calls for Michigan State football and Pistons basketball. You're a legend there, George. So let's start back, like going back before you got into the broadcasting world back in Iowa. Like, just tell us about how you came into becoming the icon that you are today back in Iowa.
Well, I think I was 8 or 9 years old when I heard all these baseball broadcasters and the football announcers on Saturday afternoon and the basketball announcers once in a while in the nighttime. And I said, what a great job that would be. And I followed all this stuff anyway. We all played in the neighborhood and so forth down the street. And everybody always wanted to be somebody on that field. And I always wanted to be the guy that was announcing the games, the big time guy. When I went to see the Tigers played the Yankees once we moved to Michigan, I wanted to see Mel Allen come out of that broadcast booth to see what he really looked like. And when Mel Allen announced the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Rose Bowl, I heard that voice talking about my Hawkeyes, the team I rooted for as a kid. I said, wait a minute, we got it. We made it now. We're big time. So it's always been a dream of mine. And I would tell any kid who wants to do something in his life, whether it's this or something else, follow your dream. Don't give up. There are a lot of people who are probably better than I am who gave up. And it's too bad they did, but I'm glad I didn't.
Great point there.
Man, great. George, I mean, personally, I flash back to my first time being on the broadcast, right? Like, obviously, I grew up Pistons fan, hearing you call those calls, especially when we won the championship, with the Taysom Princes of the world and Chauncey Billups, right? But like, I flash back to my first road game when we flew out to Notre Dame, and I tell people this all the time.
You told me that story.
I know. I tell people all the time where I was not prepared for what to expect, right? It was the biggest game. Like, the non-conference games were like easy, kind of go through, but Notre Dame's the biggest of them all when we go to non-conference, especially going there. And I tell people about the thick binder that you have in preparation. And like, we go into the flight, and Chew and Stray, I'm not far removed from playing, so it's kind of like I'm still kind of young, but also like I'm still like I'm back on the team playing. I'm like I'm drinking all the Gatorades. I feel like we're back, baby, we're back. So we sit down as me and George. We're in our row, and I see George where like I'm about to catch a snooze. And I see George open up this binder, and I see the study, and I see the preparation, and then that right then and there, I'm like, man, this is bigger than what I'm expecting. And then we had a full out one-on-one back and forth, like, hey, any questions that you have, let's go through it. And we went through the entire thing. And I don't know if you remember that, but like, that's when I knew, like, I'm a Hall of Fame. I'm with the Hall of Fame great. And I'm also privileged just to be in the presence of George Blaha. Like, it was one of those things like, I have arrived. If I die next day, I am good.
You're too kind, Otis. But
Right.
he did ask questions, and he asked the right ones. You know, some guys might say, "Oh, I don't think I have any questions." Well, everybody's going to have questions at that point when you just started. So, and Otis asked plenty of them, and he learned a lot, I'm sure, just incidental stuff that maybe he didn't know about what somebody had done recently, why they were recruited, how big a star they were, and all that other stuff, and when they got into the starting rotation and all those things. But he asked all the questions, and I was impressed with him, and I'm not surprised that he's now running the darn network.
And that's something.
Yeah. to Otis's point there, and just coming in there, George. And I remember first coming to Michigan, but not being a kid from Michigan, so I didn't get the opportunity to hear you call Pistons games or Spartan games and everything like that. I get there, and it was a practice, and you're out there in fall camp, and I was like, oh, who's that guy? And so like, don't you that's George Blaha. You're gonna get lucky if he calls your name. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it really hit when you're listening to the highlights, in the team hotel, and it's that touchdown MSU, and you say Jehuu Caulcrick. I was like, holy shit, George Blaha. So like, that's when you've made it as a player, when you get that. And so I appreciate that. And similar to Otis, coming in, now being on the sidelines working with you and Jason there, and I remember giving you a call and saying, George, what do I got to do to get better? And you gave me some pointers. One thing that I always stuck with, and I got to always remember this, he told me, get to your thoughts quicker. That was the thing.
And you do now.
You remember that?
The great thing about you guys, as gracious and kind as you are to me, we're not talking about some guys who just played. These guys were outstanding players, outstanding Spartans, and their opinion, it may not be any more important than anybody other player's opinion, but in my opinion, we're talking to guys who flat out could play this game at a very high level, and it's always an honor to be on with you guys.
George, I mean, that's very kind of you. I mean, we're on here with you, and we really appreciate this time. And when you talk about your experience, you grew up in Iowa, and you were a fan of the Hawkeyes over there at Kinnick Stadium. When was your first experience at Spartan Stadium?
As I recall, the first time I was in Spartan Stadium, I was a sophomore at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame came up. And I've kind of fault the Irish for this, but the ACC may have something to do with it. But Notre Dame and Michigan State should still be playing. That was a rivalry, and they had great respect for one another from the president's office all the way down. And we got to get that started again somehow or other. But anyway, at that point in time, the Spartans had Duffy Doherty, and Notre Dame was between head coaches. Joko Herrick had been fired, and they didn't have the guy in place that they wanted to have in place, who happened to be Ara Parsegian at Northwestern. So a guy named Hugh DeVore was the interim coach, and he was a solid assistant, but he himself said, I'm really not a head coach. And the Irish weren't very good. And the Spartans had great players, and they had Duffy Doherty. However, in the fourth quarter, with less than 5 minutes to play at Spartan Stadium, Notre Dame had a 7-6 lead. And then a guy would become a friend of mine and a broadcast partner of mine at one point, a young fellow named Sherman Lewis, went 85 yards. It was one of those defensive struggles. Both teams were bunched up at the line of scrimmage, and this guy was an absolute speedster. I think he's the best speed back Michigan State's ever had to this moment. Kenneth Walker might have his kind of speed, but that's about the only guy I can remember. So he gets like a half a step on Notre Dame, and nobody was going to catch him. It was a gray day in November in East Lansing, and as soon as he hit that end zone, I said, this game is over. He messed up my day. I told him that later when I first met him. But the Spartans always have had intriguing, exciting players. And there's another example of a running game. You don't have to be as big as Jehuu Caulcrick to run the ball. You just have to want to run the ball and have the kind of skill it takes to elude the defenders, and once you get by them, run away from them. And that was my first time at Spartan Stadium that I can remember. I was there for the 10-10 tie.
Yeah.
I was up in the crowd about 40 rows up, and you could hear the hits. And the place was noisy now, but you could still hear the hits. And there were 33 guys in that game who played professional football.
Wow.
An amazing amount of great players. Bubba Smith and Alan Page come to mind right off the bat. It was amazing how many great players played in that game. And I was telling somebody the other day, Notre Dame had some injuries, and then Michigan State kind of felt like maybe Notre Dame should have passed late in the game. Maybe they should have won. Notre Dame thinking, well, if we had all our guys, maybe we would have won. Well, some of those guys got hurt when they played against the Spartans. The Spartans hit them and knocked them out of the game. And number two, I think in both cases, those schools are better off that the game ended in a tie. When you think about the lore of that game 50-plus years later, and I got a great story. George Gedeke played in that game at center. One of Notre Dame's greatest offensive linemen, played 9 or 10 years in the pros. And he said after that game on Christmas, some of the guys played in the North-South game in Miami. And on Christmas Eve, they're in their hotel room. They get a case of beer. George Gedeke, Charlie Thornhill, Bubba Smith, a couple other Notre Dame guys, and they're drinking beer and singing Christmas carols together. The Spartans and the Irish. What a party, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
This is
George
singing
really
Christmas carols. Singing Christmas carols, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's a great story about that rivalry. And then when I finally got to broadcast games, it was a whole new deal. I mean, that's big time football. You feel a certain amount of pressure, and you guys feel that pressure when you're on the field and now when you're on the games. And that kind of pressure brings out the best in you. And it's fun and gives you a reason to get up in the morning and get fired up. And I still feel that way about going to these games.
Yeah, George, I gotta get my questions out before Chew steals and we're straight steals them. So you've seen the evolution of Spartan football from the highest of highs to lows of lows and back to the highest of highs. And it's probably tough to just designate, but which team or season was one of the absolute best teams and productive season that in your calling career, let's talk about calling it versus the talent piece, but calling a season, which one do you think about top one? Because I know that's tough.
I don't even know if I could answer that, but I'll tell you that the team that turned my head in a big hurry was the Darryl Rogers team when the Spartans were on a probation they probably didn't deserve, and they won the Big Ten title. They could score. It was like a track meet. It was like a basketball game when they were out there on the field. And my buddy Charlie Baggett talked Eddie Smith out of transferring. Eddie was there under Denny Stoles, and Charlie Baggett was more Eddie's kind of quarterback because he could throw it and he could also run with the best of them. But Charlie said, you stick around, this Darryl Rogers wants to throw the ball a lot. And if you leave, you're crazy. And he didn't leave. And throwing to Kirk Gibson and Eugene Bird and Mark Bramer and those guys, he had a field day. So that team was absolutely flat out exciting to the max, in my opinion. And I think the 99 Nick Saban team, that was the first team to beat Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, and I'm trying to think another big-time team in the same season. That was a great team, but I loved how that all began. Really, in '98, when the Spartans were underdogs at Ohio State, Jason played in that game and played his behind off. They beat Ohio State as 28-point underdogs, and they did it in Columbus. That was one of the more exciting games I've ever called. And then we have, the great finishes. Mark D'Antonio, as I told somebody the other day on Spartan Vision, knew how to win close games. And he was willing to take chances to win close games. I think Little Giants against Notre Dame, was proof positive of that. He's got a 47-yard field goal to maybe make this thing into overtime. Instead, he rolls the dice. They're either going to win it now or not with the Little Giants play. So there were any number of games like that Coach D crossed up the opposition and showed that he really is a riverboat gambler. When you think of Mark D'Antonio, think of a kind of a buttoned-up, solid guy, but he's not all that buttoned up, is he, fellas?
Hey, look, JG, I was like, you said it, I did.
Absolutely not. Yeah, he definitely is. You hit it on the head there, the riverboat gambler, and you talked about Coach D, having that prowess of winning close games, and I was fortunate. I played 1 year under him. Otis, I was luckier and played 2 under him. It was just that composure. That it didn't matter where you were, what point of time in the game, you always felt like you had a chance to win. And, that's just something that he brought to the table.
Hey, fellas, Jason, I want to ask you a question. When you played for Nick, who will go down in history as probably the best college football coach of all time.
Yeah,
I know I'd vote for him. But anyway, the fact that you're playing as a 4-touchdown dog in Columbus, and you got a coach on the sideline who ends up winning the game. Did he make you guys feel like you could and should win that game? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, look, in college football, as these guys know, like there's not a game that you approach. You shouldn't be going into a game feeling like you don't have a shot. Everybody, you feel like you have a chance to win. We just got to do X, Y, and Z and execute our plan. So and the losses come from like, somebody didn't execute, but we felt like we could absolutely go into Columbus and do it. And as we had those opportunities with Paul Ettinger, the kicker, that
Sure.
JU's favorite. He's a favorite, loves kickers. But Paul Ettinger was one of the reasons that we won that game. I mean, he was 5 for 5 in that game, didn't miss. We ran the ball, we threw the ball, but being able to capitalize on every scoring opportunity is what mattered, and we had a stop at the end of the game that won it. People talk about that interception by Ronaldo Hill at the end of the ball game.
They take 4 shots to the end zone from about the 25-yard line.
That's right. That's right.
Plus Ronaldo. Wow.
Defensive coordinator.
That game more than any other early in his career anyway. Early on in his career, started to put Nick Saban on the map. And he's got a lot of money these days. Maybe you should give Jason some of it.
Why not?
Hey. Out, 98 in that game?
Exactly. Yeah,
Hey, George, he might be giving us.
He's trying to recruit his son. That's true.
Yeah, he got the Strayhorn boys, man. You never know, right?
Hey, George, you brought up one of those calls. We want to go back down memory lane and talk and listen to that famous call, the Little Giants, right now.
The heat's on young Dan Conroy. In overtime, 4th down and 14. The ball placed down at the 36-yard line, right hash mark. Aaron Bates will hold. Alex Shackleton will snap. Dan Conroy with the biggest kick of his life. Oh, they'll fake it. Bates throws it. He's got him! Wide open! He's got Charlie Gant inside the 10. He can walk in. Spartans win. Touchdown, MSU! A 29-yard score. Notre Dame caught absolutely flat-footed Jim Miller.
Brian Kelly on the sideline there. Great call, George.
A younger Brian Kelly.
Yeah, Alex Shackleton, boy, that brings back
Jack.
He told me later, he lives in Denver.
Yeah.
He told me later that, and he almost made it to the NFL. They said his snap time was a split second too slow.
Wow.
But I don't remember him having a bad snap in college ever. No. And he told me, you made me famous, and thank you for including me as you set up the play. You hear my name, just like you guys just did.
So people don't know that year we didn't have. I don't think we had a backup quarterback in Bates. Aaron Bates was a backup quarterback. Like during camp, like we didn't have the depth at quarterback, and so that's why he stood up there.
Surprised that he passed the ball then.
Exactly, as a high school quarterback, like he was all world and coming out of high school. So, I mean, Charlie Gant, like if you look at our commemorative tickets, Charlie Gant's Little Giants walking, running into the end zone, he's on the season ticket piece to honor the 100th year of Spartan Stadium.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, that was an awesome and then the best part, I wish we caught Coach D coming off the sideline with that swagoo look. It's like smirk. It was that smirk, like, yeah, I knew it was gonna work. Like,
oh yeah, on that's when Brian Kelly walked up to him and said, "Did you call that? Did you call it?" Like, yeah, I called it.
Did Brian Kelly ask Coach D that?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, at the 50-yard line. Did you call that play?
And I think it's crazy because people don't understand. We practice those all the time. Like that field goal, like the punt with JU, and I was then when JU graduated, then I became the PP and snap right directly to you. So that stuff is not just like rocket science of like, hey guys, we're going to do a fake, let's draw it up. It's the situational things in practice that Coach D, we talk about. Coach D has another connection to a higher power that
right.
That's what Will Teeman said on Tuesday. He has a different connection than on any of us because he feels like we're going to get it done. I'm going to visualize it. I'm going to speak it, and it's going to happen. And just that was a great experience. Little Giants.
Well, yeah, and that was some of the fun stuff about Coach D. Like you said, Otis, because he was like what Andy Reid is now. He let us come up with different plays in practice and be like, "Oh, coach, we got to fake this week." And then so he was like, "Okay, what do you got?" And then they'll scheme up defensive. He liked it, put it in the file and everything like that. So that was the fun part about Coach D that from the outside looking in that you would not see.
What did you like the best about Coach D? Fellas, either playing for him, observing him, or whatever. What I liked best was the response to little brother. I mean, how can you not admire a guy for standing up there and saying, "This isn't over"?
I feel like when Coach D came, George, I had more like one-on-one time because he was a defensive he was a defensive-minded coach, but more so played the position at South Carolina and spent quality time with us of like, we need to get more production from our secondary. And so I had more of almost like the first year, junior year, it was a love-hate relationship. It was like it was your father that's telling you what to do and you continuously do the wrong thing. And then you didn't realize at half of the season, oh, Coach D knows what he's talking about. So we had that, we had that back and forth, but then he came in and like we talked about the John L. era. We were not even educated, we were educated, smart men, but from the X's and O's, we were relying on too much of just, hey, here's a wristband. Let me say, hey, defensive wise. I know defensive wise. Yeah, sorry. I want to put you in there. Look, you're talking about it's a team sport, but clearly he just divided it. Anywho, Coach D came in and broke it down, George, where like he broke it down to the science where I didn't really understand the level of X's and O's to go to be able to play fast. And I think that time spent to like show us how to be businessmen on and off the field, that was where I'm more appreciative than anything, where he came in and he accepted us. Like he could have easily kicked us to the curb like, Prime did. I don't want to put him out, but like Prime did. But like Coach D could have came in and said, I'm bringing all my guys from Cincinnati or my recruits and et cetera. But he came in and he embraced everybody that was there. And I respected him more than ever till this day as I'm learning and growing in business. But I played faster. I wouldn't be all Big Ten as a senior if it wasn't with Coach D. Like if I was still in that system with John L., I would have just kind of been crossing through and just 4 years done. But Coach D helped me prepare better. Like that was the element of you got to take this thing serious. Like you got to be able to put the switch on and off. When you come onto the field, there's a persona that you need to adapt to. When you put that helmet on, it's Halloween. I think that's the element, like that's the one-on-one fatherhood thing that I had with him versus anybody else. And the DBs, probably everybody you talk to, George, the DBs had that same experience because he spent so much time with us for those first 2 years than he did with anybody else. So he ran our position group basically with Coach Barnett. So the worst, and I'll stop here, the worst pregame workout, like in practice and in game, where you are gassed, like you are absolutely gassed when Coach D's running that drill.
Oh boy,
George! Oh man, I was talking too much. Oh man,
you ran him off, Otis.
oh Lord.
No, we'll get him back on here, man. Look,
classic.
Unbelievable.
Oh God! Of course, Otis would run him off. Remember what George said: "Get to your thoughts quicker."
Usually it's Choo-Choo talking the most, right? So
you over there with Dan. You over there with that Dan Henry distributing. See, right. Everybody thinks you in Guantanamo Bay right now.
Look,
everybody said blink 3 times if you're safe, Otis. He's not in the bathroom. He's not in the shower. He doesn't have toilet paper. We saw all that, guys.
We see it. Like, man, look. It looked like I'm in, but like it's a nice little get up. Like this is the city, you know?
See that?
I'll be sitting at that bar over there. That's great lighting.
It's not great lighting actually, because we got dark scent. We got like no tone. The light's not on there, so I didn't want to get on and say, hey, the light is bad. So anywho.
No more talking, Otis. Damn.
Otis ran George off.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's a sweet place you at, man. So, like, talk to us about, like, what was the meeting about? Can we get in?
It's all about just mapping out the beer sales, baby. Like, that's all I can say is mapping it out. There he goes.
There he is.
George, my apologies. I won't talk anymore.
Otis ran you off.
I'm going on mute, George. I'm going on mute, man.
That's the advice he didn't take from you, George. He didn't get to his thought quick enough.
That's great.
Ramble on.
Great stuff about Coach D'Antonio. 3 Big Ten championships says it all.
Yeah.
And the trip to the playoffs, when it was only 4 teams getting there, these days it's going to be like the NCAA basketball tournament. Almost everybody goes. But anyway, he gets there when there's only 4. Come on. And he beat Michigan 8 times.
Yeah.
I know he wanted to beat him 13, but 8's enough.
Right. It's never enough with those guys, George. It's never enough.
George, we can't not talk about the Pistons. I mean, you are a Pistons NBA legend, starting there with 1976 with the Pistons. Now, talk about how did you get into broadcasting for the Pistons?
Well, when I went to Adrian, Michigan to work, I figured everybody should start in a small market. You learn the broadcast business really from the ground up. But I was in Adrian, Michigan for a minute, did some high school football games there, moved to Lansing and did high school basketball games. And then when WJR had an opening, a guy who I knew recommended me. He said, this George Blaha knows a lot of stuff. He knows Mike Cuellar's innings pitch to strikeout ratio. You should put him on your station. And WJR's Frank Beckman, the late Frank Beckman, now said, well, the only job we have open is Piston basketball. And I said, well, I've done Michigan State football, but only high school basketball. So I sent him a high school basketball tape. And
there's Frank.
And Jason and I with Jim Bradstetter and Frank at our stadium sometime during the first 100 years. Anyhow, Frank said, your tape is the best I've got. And this was like in June. And they were going to make a decision in September. So I feel like I was a leader in the clubhouse at a golf tournament. And,
just sitting there waiting.
Shooting at that. And somebody's going to beat this. I don't know how I'm going to keep this job. But time went on. And I just checked a couple of times. You can't keep calling and saying, hey, am I still number 1? But I checked a couple of times. And lo and behold, I ended up getting the job. Then the Pistons hierarchy made me go do an inter-squad, almost a shirt skins game at training camp for the Pistons at Chrysler. And after I did that, and I got that tape. I want to listen to it sometime. One of the guys gave it to me, the tape of that game. But lo and behold, I got the job. And I'll tell you what, the game moved so fast. And once I got the job, I went and watched the preseason game, Cavaliers and the Pistons up at the IMA in Flint. And I'm trying to do the game in my head like I've done the high school games. And I'm saying, I got to do some stuff differently here. These guys are getting up and down the court like this. This is not Okemos High School, and God bless the Okemos students. There came the word Glasser and a few other things like that I thought helped me abbreviate things and get them done quicker so that I could keep up with the game. But the most, what do I want to say? Heavy thing that happened to me was sitting down to do the first game for the Pistons at Cobo, and out walks Bob Lanier and Wes Unseld for the opening tip. I said, man, those are grown men and beyond, and I better buckle up my seatbelt. This is a man's game here, and it's been a great ride, and I'm fortunate that I'm still doing it.
Yeah, George. So with that, the Pistons thing, and like once again, I'm not from Michigan, so people are gonna think I'm hating it, but they haven't won much, Michigan sports. In a while.
Here we go.
As Ross Perot said in the '92 debate, can I fan it?
No,
that's ridiculous. Cancel.
What am I cancel? What championships have the Lions won?
Haven't won much lately.
Lately.
But if you look around the league. The Boston Celtics and the Lakers have like 16, 17 titles, and almost nobody else has 3. By the way, the world famous New York Knicks have 2.
Thank you. Thank you, George. Thank you, George.
And we had some great ones with the Bad Boys and then with the Going to Work group.
George, that's a little shot at me because I'm a Knicks fan. No, but the thing is this, George. The thing is, what I'm saying is what I'm getting at, and compliments of you, George. I got to meet some of those, go to work Pistons, players. But you were the one, you called it when they brought a championship to Detroit. That's what I was getting. I was trying to put you guys and then lift you guys up, with the go to work Pistons there. So how was it? And because I've heard the stories and stuff how was that call when the Pistons brought a championship back to Detroit, and then that party afterwards?
Well, we had great parties when the Bad Boys won, that's for sure. We had a nice party at the Palace when the Going to Work group won as well. But I think there's probably no championship like the first one. And to take the Lakers down in LA in '89 with Isaiah and Joe and Bill Laimbeer and VJ and the rest was amazing. And to do it at the Forum, that party after that game, you walked in there and there were anything in the world you wanted to drink and eat, and let's get after it. That was the whole deal. And I remember hanging out with Bill Laimbeer and Isaiah and everybody. It was awesome. And we had lost the year before on a bad call against Bill Laimbeer against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The same game 6 against the Lakers when Isaiah on a sprained ankle had 25 in the third, and they told Bill Davidson, our owner, Mr. Davidson, get in the locker room. The champagne's in there. We think you're going to win tonight. And then when they lost that game and Isaiah was hobbled and, not himself for game 7, and we lost, he said, George, I thought that was as close as I would ever get to a championship. But he won the next year and the next year after that against Portland. And he was a great owner. He really was. And I'm happy for him and for his family that he was the owner of the Bad Boys. He got us a plane, first team in the league to have their own plane. And he did a lot of great things. He really and truly did. And then he was still there when Joe Dumars, one of the bad boys, put together the going to work group. And those guys, that was the most unbelievable structure for a team. Joe built that team with guys that in some cases other people didn't want or didn't understand how good they were. And it was amazing. Here's Ben Wallace. We get him because Grant Hill wanted out. And so we get Ben from Orlando, signed Chauncey, who had been a high draft choice and who hadn't quite played up to his capabilities, but he certainly did in Detroit. He played great in Detroit and was a Finals MVP, deservedly so. And he drafted Tayshaun Prince, who became one of the best defenders in our league. And in the end, made a trade to bring in Rip Hamilton, and that great trade to bring in Rasheed Wallace. That was a heck of a team. I think I'll tell you guys this. I think if those two teams played and they're both in their prime, it would be a 7-game series because the going to work group was that good. I think the bad boys would beat them in a 7-game series, but what do I know? It would have been close, I'll tell you that.
George, I'm going to ask you this because I know people ask you all the time, what's your favorite NBA city? And you say, besides New York, right?
That's New York.
Besides New York. So I'm going to ask you this. It's a tough question. Now, the top 3 Pistons players all time that you would like to have a steak dinner with in New York if you had a time off.
You mean, well, a lot of guys were great to hang out with. I mean, I was very fortunate to get to know those guys. Even during the Ben Wallace time, there wasn't such an unbelievable disparity in our ages that we didn't occasionally have a cold one together. And bad boys are almost the same age as those guys. So I will just say this. In my opinion, the 3 greatest Pistons of all time are Dave Bing, Bob Lanier, and Isaiah Thomas. It doesn't mean there aren't some other people very close. But I think those 3, and I hate it that we lost Bob at a fairly young age, but those 3 guys, to me, were the cream of the crop in Piston Blue. And who am I going to hang out with? I used to hang out with Vinny a lot. Vinny's so rich now we don't see him too much anymore. That's not a bad thing.
The microwave. That's before y'all time. You guys remember Vinny Johnson? You know who that is, Otis?
Yes, absolutely. Positively.
The microwave?
Jehu's not a basketball guy. And
I'm a New York Knicks fan. I'm a New York Knicks fan.
Yeah,
George.
you like New York Knicks fan when they ain't like the rival with the Bulls.
I like the Knicks too.
No, I was New York Knicks back when Patrick Ewing, John Stark.
The Chicago Bull there. What are you talking about?
I'm still a Knicks fan up until now.
Gotcha.
I still got faith.
So yeah, I should have took that, man. I should have took that picture with Spike Lee though. I should have took it for you. George, adding on to Stray's question, what are the 3 greatest Spartans?
Oh gosh,
football players.
Ooh.
Nobody ever asked me that before.
Ooh. Let's go.
There we go.
Well, some of those guys are before my time. You can't not put George Webster on that list. I mean, you have to have him on that list.
Yeah.
And you could find 3 guys from the '65 team and make them the 3 greatest Spartans of all time.
Right.
With Bubba and some other guys like Bob Pisa and but I would say during the time that I've broadcast Michigan State football, Kurt Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and if you're going to take another receiver, you have to take Plaxico, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And if you're going to take a quarterback, you have to take Kirk Cousins, wouldn't you?
Ooh. That's a cheeky one.
Ooh, no.
Look,
over Lorenzo.
There's a lot of great quarterbacks. Don't get me wrong. And Axel Hoyer's my guy, and Brian Hoyer had 4 touchdown passes in one of the big games at Spartan Stadium, and he's made a ton of money in the pros. Connor Cook did nothing but win. Who am I forgetting here?
So you forget
Lorenzo White.
You forget.
Yeah, you know what? I think leave the quarterbacks out. as good as they are, I think you do Kirk Gibson, Lorenzo White, and Plexico Burress.
There you go.
Ooh.
So you have the beauty and privilege of like Charles Rogers, seeing him though.
I love Chuck Rogers. He was right there too.
Yeah, and then Andre Rison.
Okay.
I'm trying to get like the Saginaw Flint connection.
Yeah, he's trying to get the Sag. Yeah, I was gonna say you trying to get the Flint boy.
That would have been easier. I probably would have had those 2 guys in there if I had 5. Or Le'Veon.
Yeah, that's true. I should have given you top 5 because there's too many greats.
You know what? I was at practice one day with Sherman Lewis, and Le'Veon Bell was a 2-star when he got here.
Yeah, 2-star. Can you believe that?
And Sherman Lewis said, "That guy looks like reminds me of Marcus Allen."
Mm.
Oh,
wow. And he didn't know anything about the guy, but that shows you what a trained eye, a Super Bowl winning football coach can see right away. Yeah, 4 Super Bowls for Sherman.
Wow, that's a great comparison. That's crazy because he did have that. He had that
forward.
He had that, and Sherman had been in practice for about 20 minutes.
That's crazy.
He told me that he'd never seen the kid before. I'm sure.
He looks like Marcus Allen. He ends up being that kind of talent.
Right.
That's
I've been fortunate that I've been able to get to know so many of these guys. You know, Sherman and Charlie are my guys. Charlie Baggett, and when I first started broadcasting the games in 71, 72, Charlie was throwing the ball deep to Mike Jones and also running the ball like crazy. Drew Stanton and Charlie are the only guys that have X amount of 100-yard rushing games at quarterback, and he can still throw the ball too. And we're fortunate that the great Jimmy Ray was his next door neighbor in Fayetteville, North Carolina. When Charlie went to North Carolina to be a quarterback, he was going to be the first black quarterback at North Carolina. And he got there, they said, "You know what, son, I think we like you better at wide receiver." And I don't know if they're ever going to play him at quarterback to begin with. It might have been the big switch.
Right.
And so now where am I going to go? Jimmy said, "Charlie, come to Michigan State. They don't have a problem with that at Michigan State." And, of course, they didn't. And great for Charlie. And we're lucky we had Jimmy Ray on our all-time list of great Spartans, too. And he's been a heck of a coach. No, he and Sherman were just honored by the NFL Hall of Fame for their contributions as assistants. I think they're the first in the first group of assistant coaches anyway honored by the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, JU's coach, running back coach. We had Jimmy Ray on.
Yeah, Jimmy extended my playing career in the NFL at least 2 years.
Yeah. Does JU get a chance to be that productive at the next level without Jimmy Ray?
That's what I'm saying. He extended my careir, you know.
You'd have found a way.
But hey, I'll take all the help I can get at that level.
Nothing wrong with that.
You got backs like JU running up inside. You're going to get a lot of first downs, even on Sunday. So good for you, my man.
George, let's fast forward to this season here. Obviously, last season was a disappointing season for the Spartans. It wasn't typical Spartan football. What do you think we have to do this year to, turn things around and have the season that we think we're capable of?
Well, we got to get better on defense than we already have. Mm-hmm. And the team last year had some struggles, but a lot of that had to do with a tunnel at Michigan. And those 2 Michigan players should not have been in that tunnel, shooting off their mouth. And then our guy, Mel, did what he thought was the right and just thing by suspending those guys for the rest of the season. But we don't lose those guys. We probably win 7 games or 6 anyhow and go to a bowl game. But nevertheless, it was disappointing no matter how you cut it. And you need somebody else with some speed like Kenneth Walker, and I believe that Nate Carter has that. Maybe not Kenneth Walker speed, maybe not Sherman Lewis speed, but he has speed, and he's got some shake, and the offensive line is deeper. And we all know, because we've been hearing about it, and we're going to see it soon, that we have a lot more people defensively. The guys that couldn't play late in the year, like Jacoby Windman, are back. How about you've got Jacoby Windman and Cal Halliday as your two linebackers? Can you do much better than that in the Big Ten? I don't think you can.
That's right, when guys backing up like Brule, and
that's a see-ball, eat-ball mentality. That entire linebacker crew.
Right. And we've always, when the Spartans have really been good as the offense has been, there's been kind of a gangrene defense. Mm-hmm. You think of guys like Carl Banks and Percy Snow and Harlan Barnett and the great teams with we mentioned earlier, George Webster and Bubba Smith and Charlie Thornhill. Michigan State generally makes you pay, especially when you come to East Lansing and play in all that cement and steel out there at Spartan Stadium. and I think they will be much better defensively. They're going to have they'll be 3 deep at defensive tackle. Excuse me. Yeah. And as Nick used to always say, if you can affect the quarterback, you can make it a lot easier on everybody on your defensive side of the ball. And it'll help the secondary out a lot. And I don't think the secondary is going to be shabby at all. But that front 7 is going to be terrific. Maybe the best front 7 in the Big Ten. They'll be in the conversation anyway.
That's a great point. You hear Mel talking about that, and when he was breaking down the defense and like what we have to do in order to be a better run team, our run defense, that's NFL, strategy that he's talking about right there. Being able to play with one linebacker in the box, being able to be stout enough to have big humans in that box, so you can still defend the pass, because everybody has so many receivers nowadays. George, look, everybody wants to talk about, one of the things, we have a whole bunch of calls and all that, but we'll get to the call, right? We want to hear your thoughts on the most famous call, I think, in college football history, which is trouble with the snap, and we'll listen to that right here.
And snap. Bobble. Scooped up. Here come the Spartans. Down the sideline, racing into the end zone.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Into the end zone is Jalen Watts Jackson. Touchdown, MSU.
Touchdown.
Folks, no flags.
No flags. Oh, my God.
Piling on each other in the end zone. It's over. The Spartans win again. The Spartans win again.
George, what a call. My God.
Hey George.
You like that win again, fellas?
Will you tell us straight? Hey, simmer down. Let me make this call.
Hold on. Hey, just simmer down as that's happening. What's going through your mind, George? I know, what was going through my mind. How did that set up for you?
Well, it was awesome, and I'm thinking before the game began, we got a pretty good seat there in Ann Arbor for our broadcast spot, and it happened right in front of us, didn't it, Jason?
Yeah, right in front.
Right in front of us. And I remember thinking that, Michigan State's coming after them. There's everybody's on the defensive line of scrimmage. Nobody's worrying about the punt or nothing. There's no gunners. They're coming after this guy. And Michigan didn't have enough people to block him. And the snap wasn't perfect, but it wasn't god awful. And that poor punter he was the reason Michigan was ahead in the game anyway.
This is true. George, I remember you were the one who alerted.
He doesn't know anything about football. Well, go back and look what he did in that game.
Yeah.
He pinned us back every time. And he was probably the reason they were ahead. I think it was great coaching from Coach D'Antonio. He was coming after him. There was no reason not to, and God bless him, it worked. It's another close game.
Yeah.
You know how to win.
Extremely
It's
close.
getting closer than that, does it?
No. I can remember thinking about, okay, can we get in position to score late? Like, can we do a Hail Mary? Like, I wasn't, and you were the one who alerted me to, like, you said, no one's back deep. And I was like, well, so you're focused on like what's happening. And I'm thinking about what's the outcome going to be if we do, But when you said no one's back deep, I'm like, oh shit, they might be going after, I'm working, and then I'm thinking 2011, right? The Big Ten championship, Isaiah Lewis dives in, and they call the roughing the punter. So I'm like, oh, please don't hit the punter. That's all I'm thinking. But then when the ball bobbled,
that punter is live game.
Is that what they teach you, Otis?
Yes. As soon as that thing is, knock him out. Oh man. You know what, George? There's an element of we always talk about where are you at in that moment. Like when you see this game, like me being in Dallas, working at SME, like I'm at the bar at a watch party with alumni, right? Like Michigan State DFW Spartans.
Wow.
And I remember, and I told this on the Tuesday call, you remember Kevin Garnett when they won the championship, and he's like, anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
I remember yelling, I remember that, like, anything's possible, like, anything's possible. And all of a sudden it happens, and I'm like, I'm hugging and just running around the bar in Dallas like crazy because, like, that's never been done before where that game ends on that moment where, like, especially when you scoop and score. Like, I was like, just don't get caught. Like, just go get caught. Like, because it was an element where he could have got tackled. And then that was just like, oh, that's a short-lived, like, history moment there. But when you go in and then you break your hip, which is like he put the historic moment of he put his body on the line to win that game. And that's forever embedded in history. Like, forever.
You were right. Anything was possible. And kudos to Michigan State. Kudos to Mark D'Antonio again.
Right.
Made the right technical decision, and I think at that point you don't care if you hit the punter. But fortunately, the thing was bobbled, so if you hit him, it doesn't matter. What an amazing ending, and I was not stunned that it happened, but you still got to be surprised. Come on, you need a bad snap probably to make that play happen, and you need to have your guys ready to get after him.
I wish we had the video element because, like, now that I'm in this role here and I'm looking at video content, like, if we would have had that GoPro back then and, like, seeing the celebration. Because I know
there is one. There's a scene. Big Ten Network has that.
No, I'm saying
GoPro.
No, I'm saying for y'all though, from the call,
from up in the booth,
the call itself.
Oh man,
because I heard other voices in there screaming.
Yeah, there were other voices. Thank you.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I heard other voices. Like,
thank you, Otis.
Was it Ram? Was it Ram?
No, that's Larry Cernick.
Oh,
our old statistician. Yeah, Larry, great guy. You know Larry, George. Larry, people think when Larry's screaming, it's me. He's off the mic. Oh my God!
I think was Wendy in the booth then? I'm sure she was.
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
I think Wendy and Mary made some noise. At least she was there that day.
Oh yeah, that's who he was turning around and high fiving and going crazy.
Yeah. Mark D'Antonio did some amazing things, especially against those guys.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, that to me, you got the Cal band. Cal was at Stanford. The band call at the end of the game. Yeah,
the Colorado Hail Mary.
Colorado Cordell to Westbrook at Michigan. Right, that was a great one. Love that one.
Iron Bowl.
The kick six. Iron Bowl.
Yeah.
Kick six. None is greater than that one.
Man, that was
trouble with the snap. I mean, maybe we're biased, but I don't think so. Even nationally, that's one of those iconic things. And George, it was just a pleasure to have you be next, like the seat that I had on that call with you, and the view that we had. Man, that was incredible. And I'll always remember that for the rest of my life, man. And go down in history.
Let me say this, Jason, you had every right to go crazy. Right.
Thank you.
I ain't mad at you.
George, we had the privilege of being like calling that Rose Bowl stop. Like, is that trumping the Rose Bowl stop?
Yeah.
Because like not even the call, but more so like I hear Jason in the earpiece like he stopped him. Like, what's the difference in that call? Rose Bowl versus the trouble with the snap.
I think, first of all, the Rose Bowl was a 100th Rose Bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So it was an honor, and it was electric to be there, and to go there and win, which you felt would really be important, made that a very important call. But it wasn't like this one. It wasn't against those guys. Right. They thought they had won. It wasn't
like, I'm just biased because I was out there on the sideline crying. I was out there crying like, oh my God.
Both great moments, you're right, George. But yeah, against Michigan, that made it even sweeter. George, everyone here wants to hear the iconic call, the touchdown MSU. Can you do that for everybody? They want to hear. They're in the chat.
How about Jehuu Caulcrick to the 2, to the 1, into the end zone, touchdown MSU.
Oh yes, God. Sir. Yeah, he did it. He's in there.
That was great.
Otis Wiley with a pick at the 15, cuts to the outside at the 10. Otis is inside the 5, dives into the end zone, touchdown MSU. Otis Wiley with a pick 6.
Once again, Otis the ball hawking safety.
Classic,
iconic.
Classic, iconic. You're right, too. Like, that is the absolute, like, I can die tomorrow, man. That was lovely. That was lovely.
George, it's the 100th season of Spartan Stadium. This season coming up in 15 days, we're going to be kicking off Friday, September 1st, 100th season. I'm fortunate. I look forward to having the opportunity to be, part of this crew, with you and Stray. I'm excited for the season and, really appreciate you, George.
Well, we're excited to have you with us all year, Jehuu. And I know Jason's fired up and ready, and so am I. And Otis has got all the ducks in a row for all our sponsors and all of our great fans. And I got an idea for a sponsorship thing, Otis. I want to talk to you about it tomorrow.
Let's do it. I'm all about that. I'm all about that. George, I'm all about that.
He's a very thoughtful guy. We should be proud that he's a former Spartan football player. He's Exhibit A
yes, he is.
These days. So congrats, Otis.
Appreciate you, George. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, man.
Yeah, appreciate you. Appreciate the time, George.
Give Mary our love too. Give Mary,
give Miss Mary a hug for us.
Yes, we'll be tailgating in a couple days. Tailgating in a couple days on Friday night.
And have Mary bring those cookies.
Be good, fellas.
All right, to George. George Blaha, everybody. Hey, I mean, we can do a 6-hour show. We're going to have this. It's going to be like a 3-part series, maybe 4, to get all the stories out. Guys, what do you think?
You know what? I'm thinking because I get I get that thinking cap when we have these, like that post game, that Tuesday after the games, like George's got to come on and break that down with you guys, man. Like that's a whole nother level of just
with us,
with y'all too.
Stay trying to sneak out.
No, seriously. It's like, look, I'm coming from an vantage point of like, yeah, I'm on the field and I'm seeing it, but like, we got to have George on and give that breakdown, even if it's win or lose, whatever the case may be. But that Tuesday after that Saturday, Friday game, whatever the case, we got to get George locked in because that is a classic. I thought I was listening to radio when he went into it.
Oh, right.
It was like, is this auto-tune?
He was spot on, too.
He was spot on, right? So, yeah.
Man, shout out to George Blaha. And Trevor, I appreciate that. You're trying to get me the ball and let me score. Huh? That was awesome. Guys, what a great moves from center, now center eligible in the backfield. Hey, what was it? Jack Allen actually got
Jack Allen, yeah.
He did it. Got him a tutty.
Yeah, Stray was like, you got to tell the ref, I'm eligible.
Hey, Right.
Mr. Referee.
Back up. Give me that rock. Different world, fellas. Hey, man, it was always a pleasure to have a guy like a Hall of Famer and just a legend. He's in a different category. There's Hall of Fame, which is way up there. Then there's legendary, and that's George Blaha, fellas.
Absolutely.
You know, you look, it's time, for Otis Wiley, Jehuu Caulcrick. I'm Jason Strayhorn. This is Sparta MSU. Have a good night. God bless, and go green.
Go white.
Bad snap. Bobble. Scooped up. Here come the Spartans. Down the sideline. Racing into the end zone.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Into the end zone is Jalen. Watts. Jackson. Touchdown, MSU.
Touchdown!
Folks, no flags. The
No
Spartans
flags! Oh my God!
piling on each other in the end zone. It's over. The Spartans win again.
Oh
The Spartans win again.
George, what a call. My God.
This is Sparta MSU is a combined presentation of Playfly Sports Properties and Michigan State Sports Properties. The show is produced by Tony LaBarbera, Tony Gustella, and Process Driven Consulting. Additional support is provided by Brendan Duravage. On-location technical support provided by Good Fruit Video. Be sure to follow our host Jason Strayhorn, Jehuu Caulcrick, and Otis Wiley on social media. To stay up to date with all the latest This is Sparta news, please like and subscribe by visiting our link tree and tell a friend to do the same. Thank you for your support, and as always, go green.